So today, me and my team decided to create a very analytical video for you guys. We decided to deep dive into the world of feminism, into the world of the feminine species. Some would like to say the people with the vaginas. And today we're going to be doing some deep analytics on the aspect of tier ranking every single woman on Earth. So if you're a woman watching this, stick around because you're most likely in this video. Once the season 2 update releases for the IRL woman that we have in this world, I'm going to make a part 2. But as of right now, we only got part 1 and we don't got that many women in the world. So today we're going to be turning into a full-time feminist. Some people wanted to go into my comment section on some of my videos and say I'm a misogynistic asshole, so today we're going to be proving them wrong. Without further ado, let's begin. So right here we got our setup, we got our tier list on this Chromebook right here. This Chromebook is from my old school, so for those of you wondering why I'm using something prehistoric, that's why. But this in no way, shape, or form should affect our statistical deep dive and analytical deep dive. So without further ado, first contestant is going to be someone hot, someone we're starting off extremely hot, someone very popular right now, Kamala Harris. To avoid controversy, we're not going to say her ethnic background. She identifies as a lot of things depending on what helps her in a current scenario. Sometimes she's African American, sometimes she's Indian. Occasionally, she even deep dives into the Hispanic culture. So to avoid any controversy, we're just going to assume she's multicultural, and let's see what she gets on the tier list. For a woman that is 61 years of age, she looks extremely good. I would like to even say she looks a little like a baddie. I think she's pretty attractive. However, what do we give her on the tier list? Because we're obviously not going to be just sexualizing them, and we're not just going to look at every single woman on this earth and go, oh, she's hot, so she gets an A tier or S tier. So for her, I'm going to have to give her C tier. Now, the reason I'm going to give her C tier is first and foremost what I already mentioned, her lack of consistency with race. She doesn't know what to identify as, and I think as a champion, as an S tier or A tier competitor, you have to be someone who's completely willing to, you know, settle down on one race and identify with that race. With her in particular, she's struggling with that, and I don't think she's of a champion's caliber. Now, for those of you who say she may deserve B tier, I may agree with you on the aspect of looks. However, I think intelligence plays in as well, and her intelligence is not of the highest caliber. Not hating on her, I think she is extremely smart. I just don't think she is B tier smart. I will give her C tier. Now, C tier is something I would like to say is an appropriate number. I think it's appropriate to say she does not deserve the best rating ever. However, let's move on to our next competitor before we piss someone off. Now, the next person on our tier list is going to be someone who's extremely great at basketball, and before you look at me and say, is it LeBron James? I understand sometimes he's a diva, but no, not today. Today we're going to be mentioning Caitlyn Clark. Caitlyn Clark is an amazing basketball player. She does identify with the white race, which automatically drops her down 1 tier, which I personally agree with. I honestly would do 3 tiers. However, I think it wouldn't be fair to some of the competitors, considering majority are going to be of the white race. And as much as I want to give her A tier for her performance in the basketball career, I'm gonna have to drop her down to a B tier for the simple reason of we don't watch women's basketball for one person. It's because of Angel Reese too, and I want everyone to realize that. I think B tier is appropriate as well, considering the fact that I don't think she's completely ugly. I don't think she's an ugly person. However, I do think looks play into a tier, and I think her looks are not the greatest, especially on the tier list that we have here, which you guys will see later on. However, I do think she deserves B tier. I think B tier is a pretty solid spot for someone considering how much impact Caitlyn Clark has provided for the WNBA and how much money she's produced for the WNBA alone just by playing. So now we landed her on C tier, and now let's see what the third person is going to be. Now, the third person on the list slaps the competitors out of the way, if you know what I mean. Now, for those of you who don't know what I mean, she aura farmed a few years ago at the Oscars. When I say aura farmed, I mean she made her husband go up on stage and slap the shit out of Christopher Rock. For those of you that also don't know the deeper dive, I think it was on the left cheek. I could be wrong. I'll fix the analytics on the screen if I get anything wrong. Statistically, we're going to try to stay as accurate as possible. However, with this knowledge that we have and also the knowledge of her being actually bald, I will give her B tier. For those of you who are screaming at the screen right now, punching the air, you know, saying, hey man, she's A tier caliber, she's an A tier woman, I would agree with you. However, I think her backing up on the whole entire being mad at Christopher Rock and blaming her husband for it is a little bit, I don't know, flimsy. I would say it's not consistent, you know. This is like Michael Jordan when Larry Bird was in the league type of performance where you can't even beat them in the playoffs. I think it automatically sets you back a few steps. And in my personal opinion, I will give her B tier. I think that it's not only opinion based, but also statistically based. She's just not an A tier caliber person. She's bald. Let's keep moving. Now, the next person on the list is of the European white culture. For those of you that don't know or didn't hear me earlier, that automatically drops them a tier. So even if I want to give them S tier, the highest they're going to get is A tier for this reason. And it is going to be the new CEO of Turning Point USA, aka Erica Kirk. Before we give her our rating, let's give you guys a little brief breakdown of who she is. Erica Kirk is Charlie Kirk's wife. Charlie Kirk was a man who was was assassinated not that long ago. I think about a year, maybe a little less. And after he got assassinated, she took over Turning Point USA, and she's been emotionless. With this deep dive, we know that politics should not have as much emotion as they do right now. So I think that actually boosts her rating a little bit. I don't think it's great that she just, dropped her husband or used him, in my opinion. Personal opinion, of course, not statistically backed up. For, her personal gain. She didn't get with him because of his good looks. She got with him for this pure aspect of he's a multimillionaire, which when they got together, he already was extremely rich. And I do think that she is extremely performative, which also drops her down below. So we're going to put her in at the beautiful spot of D tier. Those of you who are screaming at me right now and yelling at me saying, hey man, F you, she's a C tier woman or she's an A tier woman. I could agree with you. However, I'm not going to let emotions play into this. And I think statistically speaking, this is the most accurate rating I could give her. If you're an Erica Kirk fan, I apologize. And you can go ahead and leave a dislike on this video. However, let's get into our next competitor. Now, the next woman on our list is also going to be a white woman. For those of you that don't know, Megan Fox. Now, for those of you who haven't heard me in the past, or maybe your ears are plugged every single time I say this, they might be this time as well, so I'll keep saying it. However, since she is a white person, or a person of the white ethnicity is how I should put it, we are going to have to give her the highest rating we could give is A tier, but let's break it down before we go, into the A tier category. Now, the reason I'm skeptical about A tier is because of the whole allegations of drinking children's blood and everything of that nature, and her and MGK, I think is his name, drinking each other's blood. I think that's also really weird. Now, don't get me wrong, she is extremely attractive, so that does boost her rating at least 1 or 2 points, so we will see where we land in a second. However, I'm thinking somewhere between the C and B tier. The deep dive analytics that we've completed right now, we're gonna have to put her on B tier. The reason I'm putting her on the B tier list is for one simple reason: Transformers. She did extremely well in Transformers, not only in acting, but also just looking extremely attractive, which I think boosts her ratings and makes her a lot more likable. And even if she has a shitty personality, when you look like that, we can look past that. Now, the next woman on our list is going to be James Charles. For those of you that don't know, James Charles is a guy who does makeup. However, I do consider him a woman because of how great his booty looks. All jokes aside, he does great makeup as well. And more importantly, I would consider him a diva. So we're going to have to, fit him into this list of women. I do want to point this out before giving him a great rating. He did have some allegations regarding touching little children or talking inappropriately to little children. I don't remember which one it is. I'll fix it on the screen if I'm statistically inaccurate. Once again, we're trying to stay as accurate as possible. But with that knowledge right there, it brings him down at least 3 points. However, I do think he's great at makeup, so we're going to have to bring him up a few more points back. So we're going to have to land him somewhere in the middle. I'm going to give him D tier. Being inappropriate to minors is just something extremely unacceptable, and it's not only frowned upon by me, but also by the rest of society. So we're going to have to look at it and say, not the best thing, not the best, example of what an exemplary woman is. So we're going to have to look into the full picture, and the full picture is not that pretty. So we're going to go ahead and once again put him on D tier. I apologize, and put her on D tier. Now, the next woman on the list that we're going to be bringing up is another woman of the white race. However, this woman does not deserve a high rating in my opinion. I'm going to throw that out there right away. And it is Skyler White, yo. If you don't know who Skyler White is Walter White's husband. Walter White is a extremely amazing drug lord in the TV show Breaking Bad. Now, I understand this is not a real woman. This is a fictional character. However, I feel like she deserves to be on the tier list because I don't have enough people filling up the bottom columns. So we're going to have to put her directly on F tier. Before watching Breaking Bad, I have never took a poop on my phone. However, after seeing Skyler's face a few too many times, I had to defecate directly on my device. And it's not to sit here and say she was a terrible person. In my opinion, what she wanted to do was have a happy family that does not involve selling a ton of drugs and meth, and things like that. However, the way she took, approached it and everything of that nature, her walking into the swimming pool scene, all of that, I think adds to the negative sides of her. She was also just what I like to say a bitch, which I understand that's not a statistically appropriate word to use. However, in my opinion, if you're an F tier person, you can be considered a bitch and it could still be statistically accurate. However, let's move on to the next person on the list. And this lady is extremely beautiful. This lady is an OG. For those of you that don't know, this is pretty much a Fortnite Season 1, Chapter 1 type of OG. This is the most OG it gets. Born in 1503, or I guess created in 1503, I present to you guys the Mona Lisa. Now, luckily enough, for those of you who don't know, Mona Lisa is actually not white, so we can slap her right on the S tier list. In my opinion, I'm gonna, drop the balls right away. I think she deserves to be an S tier person. I think she's extremely attractive. I have never defecated on my screen looking at her, which already makes her better than Skyler White. And honestly, I don't think this one needs much discussion. Just like if you say Michael Jordan or LeBron James is the GOAT, depending on who it is in your opinion, you don't really need to discuss that because either way, you're correct, just in different ways. With her, there's no way of being wrong. She is just an S tier type of person. S tier type of woman, you know, the woman that I would be looking for. So anyway, let's hop on to the next person. Now, the last woman on today's list is going to be someone extremely underrated, in my opinion, what they call an underdog in the basketball community and what they call an underdog in the football community. So in my opinion, this is an extreme underdog. We got Rosa Parks. Rosa Parks is not only stubborn in a good way because she did not get up from that dumb seat, she also stood on her own, stood on business, and what some people would like to call posterized the opponents. Now, for those of you who don't know, it was actually a planned lawsuit. She talked to her lawyers and they told her to go get on that bus. And essentially, when she was on the bus, some people came up to her and asked her about it. And she personally said, no, I'm okay. And they ended up arresting her. They ended up sending her to jail, which is where she won a big lawsuit and also created a huge movement for the African-American community, which is why I think she is an underdog. Pardon the slurring. I understand that it's not professional for me to slur occasionally. I'm trying to stay as professional as possible. However, sometimes one or two extra letters slip. Now, she actually died the same year I was born, which actually hits home. It hits right here, right deep in the heart, right in the middle. And as a person of the white community, which means I can only get the best rating I could ever get is A tier, which is understandable enough. I think she deserves S tier. I think she's a better person than me. I think she's a better person than you. And more importantly, I think she is one of the coolest women I've ever heard of. Stand on business like that, you know, to be pressed by 5 people on the court and you have ball and you know what you do instead of passing it, you shoot that shit. That's what she did. And that is professionalism. That is what we like to call GOAT activities. If she was a basketball player, she would have 11 rings just like Bill Russell, except she would have 11 seasons that she played. That's it. That is a GOAT performance. There you have it. I just ranked all the women in the entire world. If you're new here, go ahead and leave a like and subscribe. Let me know what you think of this video. It was for comedic purposes, so please do not go down there bashing me in the comment section. I'm not racist. I love every single race. I love all colors, even the bad ones. And more importantly, I love all of you guys. Thank you all so much for watching. And as always, have a great day. Peace.